Hi, I'm Chris Nazarenus. It's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for having us and the university for hosting this. I am the CEO of Medical Marijuana 411, and we are almost 13 years in business, and we actually touch zero plant product. We only educate, and we now are the global leader in education with more accreditations, certifications than any other company in the world. So we're proud to be part of the Cannabis Hub and see what we can do here, and let's talk about the importance of medical certifications. It's interesting because 85% of medical professionals have no idea about the endocannabinoid system and are not taught about cannabis as medicine in professional academic settings. So what's happening? It's all of us, probably everyone in this room, has a patient story of someone they know, whether it's a friend, family member that got us into this room today. It's patients that are driving the story. They're the ones that are now opening up the box globally and pushing universities to look at the importance of medical certifications, and that's why we're here. So I'd like to take a kind of a high-level dive in what topics need to be covered in those certifications, and here we go. First, the endocannabinoid system is very newly discovered, so it's the largest receptor system in our body. Raphael Mechoulam actually discovered and isolated CBD and THC in 1964, which was the first opening of how this could be not just a plant, but plant medicine. He isolated the THC molecule, which, interestingly enough, mirrors almost identically the anandamide molecule that our body produces naturally. Okay, Eileen Howlett actually discovered the endocannabinoid system in 1988. And so that was where now scientists starting to put together the science behind the plant, where THC and the endocannabinoid system were literally like a lock and key in your system. Your body, the endocannabinoid system actually is the largest receptor system, managing all the homeostatic processes from breathing, sleeping, anxiety, fertility, all the different processes in your body. The binding agents actually go THC, CBD to the CB1 and CB2 receptors. CB1 receptors being very highly located in the brain, working on anxiety, stress, those types of things. And that's where your body becomes self-modulating with working with cannabis as medicine. CB2 receptors tend to be more on the inflammation side of things, so that's where it starts to work with pain, seizures, those kind of situations. Here's a graphic that shows the locations of CB1 and CB2 receptors. It's interesting because the body clearly has the largest receptor network that interfaces directly with cannabis. There has been 0 deaths by cannabis. Well, actually, there's one anecdotal incident during a rat study that they gave the equivalent of smoking 1,500 pounds of cannabis in 15 minutes, and it was a fatal overdose, but it was actually because of carbon monoxide poisoning, not because of cannabis. What's interesting also is that as we isolated CBD and THC, you started seeing that there was psychoactive sides and non-psychoactive sides. I think that, even all of us in this room who are probably pretty educated, at some point didn't understand that cannabis wasn't always gonna just make you high, right? Is that you could get the therapeutic products from the CBD side. And also THC, it's kind of gotten a bad rap over the last few years because of, passing of the Farm Bill in the States and certain things like that. And THC is highly effective with many, many ailments. And there's also now a lot of research showing how CBD mitigates the side effects of anxiety, heart racing of THC. Here's just kind of a glance at what the different cannabinoids are. There's actually the major cannabinoids of THC, CBD, but there's 131 now isolated minor cannabinoids that actually have different activation on the receptor system. So you can see like THCVA actually suppresses appetite versus, the old adage that, marijuana always makes you want more food. Different CBG actually is really great for anxiety and some of those ailments. So this gives a little bit of a chart of what some of those possibilities are. Another at a glance going back to the endocannabinoid system, absolutely controls the majority of the bodily function. From sleeping, breathing, eating, all these different functions actually interface with cannabis. The next complexity is terpenes. It's not just cannabinoids that are part of the therapeutic makeup of what can be part of the healing powder. Terpenes actually are what you smell. Cannabis technically has no odor. And so if you look at these different terpene combinations, it's everything from lavender smelling, linalool, to limeno, which is more of a citrus kind of concept, to different hops. You find terpenes in beer as well. This is probably the biggest issue for medical professionals is delivery and timing. It's very confusing with cannabinoid medications. What happens? From inhalations, what's the bioavailability? What happens within your body when you ingest cannabis? I think all of us have heard some of the stories of an edibles incident where they take too much, they start high, don't start slow, and although it won't kill them, it's probably not a very good effect, right? So interestingly enough is that what we try to do is make sure that the certifications, we need to teach medical professionals how to medicate, reduce the stigma of the ways to medicate, and look at the timing involved in the bioavailability. The other piece that's also part of that that's really important is what about contraindications of medications? Any medication is not a perfect situation, and cannabis is not the perfect answer. We've got to look at which way, different medications are working with cannabis within our bodies. So what's the bottom line? Is that there is definitely a gap that we can fill as a community here with the Cannabis Hub to start developing cannabis certifications for medical professionals, looking at the science, making sure that the science is cited, that research is there. One of the things that I saw with the roundtables yesterday, which were excellent, by the way, is that there was 3 consistent talking points. Legislation. We have to legalize. We have to make sure our legislation bodies understand the benefits and what we're dealing with as a body of how we're working with the plant, right? That takes education. It's education with medical professionals, patients, and the general community. There was a lot of talk about safety and those types of things. And just to preface, it's like education. There's not a situation that it's ever a bad thing. You want to make sure that you have access to the right information, the right research, the right citations, et cetera. So with that said, that concludes what I'm talking about today. So thank you very much for having us, and hopefully you learned a little bit today, but I know we have a pretty educated crowd, but I think you can see what we're trying to map out for the future. Thank you.